Good morning, or good day. I guess good day would be more appropriate depending on when you're watching this. I know it's been quite a while since I did another video. Again, my day job makes it difficult to be able to take time to actually go over current events as much as I'd like to. And also, my voice recently has been a little strained. This seems to be a recurring issue. I don't know what it is. It's feeling a lot better than it was like the past 3 days. So hopefully I don't re-aggravate whatever it is that's going on. But I figured this seemed important enough to really carve out some time here, as I'm, thankfully on a rare occasion working from home today, because the House and the Senate have passed the debt ceiling bill, and there has been a lot of talk over this. And I'll just go ahead and put my piece out there. I knew that there was less than a 5% chance that the House would actually push this all the way to default. So I kind of knew something was going to give, but I didn't think it would be to this level of, I guess you could say, bending the knee. I said this from the very beginning. I think it was probably around the 13th or 14th round of voting when it came to electing a new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. I said it back then: if the Republicans do not hold and force this idiot to stand aside and let a real America First person take over, this is going to be a disaster. He can say whatever he wants. He can appoint people to committees all he wants. He can do all of that. He can promise to do things, but when it's the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left, and you have the advantage, you are holding all the cards, what's he going to do? And what he does is what he always does, is what all of these career politicians do. They look out for the machine, they look out for themselves, and they make deals in the background where no one's around, and they screw over the American people. Flat out. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, on the surface, and you'll hear Kevin McCarthy and his ilk parroting this all over media, and I'll say mainstream media, because I'm going to lump in Fox News, even the Epoch Times here, and some aspects of Newsmax. All of that is just mainstream media at this point. Very few people in mainstream media are dissenting about this. And they're saying it's the largest spending cuts in American history, when in reality, it's much worse. And when I say worse, it's much more expensive, and there's really hardly any cuts whatsoever in the meat of this bill. And that's what we're going to get into. So I wanted to, at first, cut this here. So what they're initially saying here is that the bill also makes changes to work requirements for some social welfare programs. Basically, all that does is put work requirements on for like food stamps and stuff like that. Like, you have to be either looking for a job or have a certain amount of, hours working at a job. I wasn't able to actually get into the details of that, but the biggest one that everyone is claiming is a win is that they're taking back $20 billion in IRS funding. Now, on the surface, because you say $20 billion, well, that's a lot of money, okay. When in reality, the total amount of funding that the IRS had under Joe Biden's new, whatever it was that he passed for the IRS, was $90 billion. So you're talking less than like a 30% cut in funding for the IRS. So those 87,000 IRS agents, they're still coming. They're still coming. Maybe they all don't get, field notebooks and a pen, maybe they don't get new coffee makers at the IRS building, But yeah, so instead of 90, they get 70 billion. And $30 billion in unspent COVID relief funds. Now, that right there, it basically, I guess it's returning money to the government, which is then going to be spent on what exactly? And it's going to be spent on additional nonsense that the Democrats are cooking up. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that these talking heads don't understand, is that the majority of the American people, I'm going to show you this, wanted, I should say, sure, a debt ceiling agreement with real spending cuts. And I bring you to none other than CNN, a CNN poll. Now, remember, this is a CNN poll, which means it targets their audience. 60% say debt ceiling increase should come with spending cuts. 60% of Americans say Congress should only raise the nation's debt ceiling if it cuts spending at the same time, according to a new CNN poll conducted by SSRS as a blah, 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 blah. So, and what they mean by that is that not taking like little bits and pieces here, not having, opt-outs or, loopholes into this, no, like real hard spending cuts. Now, everybody likes to yammer on about how, the U.S. is going to default on its debt. We're not going to be able to pay. We're not going to have anything. People are going to not have, oh, God, think of the politicians. They're not going to get a paycheck. Like, God forbid, back in the day, the politicians worked for free. Gee, what a world that must have been. And there was also one representative per 30,000 people, I think. Can you imagine if we had that today? How many freaking congressmen and women we would have? But anyway, they say all this stuff when in reality, what they're really saying is, oh, dear Lord, some of our pet projects won't have the funding because we'll be forced to use the money on paying back our debt. And we won't be able to have any new spending and print more fake money to fund all of this other nonsense and plunge us even further into debt. So, and how I am going to explain this is how much America earns every year through taxes. In 2022, the U.S. collected just over $5 trillion in federal revenues. And that's up $630 billion from 2021 after adjusting for inflation. $5 trillion in taxes. Here, for contrast, is how much the interest is, the interest payments is for our debt. For 2022, $475 billion. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a massive number. But you compare that to the $5 trillion in taxes, you have to start wondering, well, where the hell is this money going? And I can tell you, no one knows. No one has any clue where this money's going. The Pentagon, what was it, 6-7 months ago, came out and said they can't account for hundreds of billions of dollars in spending. So there's massive accounting oversights, like overlooking here. There's no oversight on where any of this money is really going. On paper in these bills, it says we're doing this. But one of the things that should have been axed altogether from spending bills is foreign aid. 100%. I'm sorry. But when our country is on the verge of a financial collapse because we can't even pay our own freaking debt, the first thing that needs to go is handouts to other countries. So, and let's face it, it's hundreds of millions and in some cases billions I don't think billions go to countries, but I know hundreds of millions go to countries, which can equate to over, billions of dollars. Those need to go right away. And that includes the precious proxy war sandbox, flashpoint in Ukraine. That should have been axed a long time ago. You want to talk about wasteful spending? I mean, that should have been the first thing. There should have been written into law, no new funding for Ukraine. Period. But of course, nobody wants to touch that. Nobody wants to touch that. You know, everybody seems to be ignoring that. Even my fiance, who was never into politics until we met, has said multiple times when it comes to the debt, how about we just stop giving money to Ukraine? So, and then there are some senators out there who are trying to tell the truth, who are trying to explain things. One of the big things about this bill is that I think it's the Office of Budget Management or something like that. In this bill, the spending limits can be overwritten by that office. It's in the bill. So yeah, there's like a chain link fence in front of new spending, but you can just run over it with the car labeled Office of Budget Management. And I believe that's where, Management Office of that's where J.D. Vance came in. This is from Kevin McCarthy. I mean, not Kevin McCarthy, geez, I was reading this right here. This is from Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. One of the good things about being in the Senate is we've had a little bit more time to actually look at this. All the spending cuts, or nearly all of the spending cuts, can be waived by the Office of Management and Budget, which is, of course, controlled by the Biden administration. So there you go. At any time they want, Biden and his little, halfling, his little staff can go and make a phone call and have them waive whatever spending limit, wherever it is, and they get the money. Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and this is another thing, they're keeping spending, like what the actual debt ceiling, what the spending level is, at COVID emergency levels. And that's what Nancy Mace of South Carolina just mentioned here. Democrats were walking out of the chamber last night bragging about how Republicans got rolled, and it's true. No limit or no cap to the debt ceiling in this bill, but it also puts into law record high spending set during the COVID emergency. So there you have it, folks. This is the bill that everyone is claiming is a win. And in the meantime, federal agencies that really should be defunded, if not scrapped, are continuing their assault on American civil liberties, our constitutional rights, and basically targeting political opposition. I don't need to go into details. At this point, we all know what I'm talking about. And this right here is the glaring piece of evidence that should be evident to everybody. Emerald Robinson, Newsmax, shame on you for firing her. This woman is doing God's work when it comes to trying to inform the American people of the mismanagement and evil doings of our own government. So here's from the House Oversight Committee. FBI Director Wray has confirmed the existence of the FD-1023 form alleging then Vice President Biden engaged in a criminal bribery scheme with a foreign national, blah, blah, blah. We all know China. Emerald Robinson. The FBI is hiding a file that shows Joe Biden was bribed by a foreign power. You need to understand, our republic is gone. And then she says the hour is very late. Now, people that have been in this game for a long time have kind of already figured this part out. You can insert the James Franco first time meme, because that was my initial response to her when she said this. I was like, oh, is this your first time here? Because we've all kind of figured that this was the deal for many years. The only wrench in the machine was 2016. When Trump was elected. And I know everybody is ragging on Trump right now. I'm not going to get into Trump and DeSantis in this video. I've done that a few times. I'll probably do it again. Everybody likes to talk about, Trump did spending, did this, did that. Well, to be fair, I disagreed with the spending levels. I thought it was nonsense. I thought it was a little crazy to put the spending at what it was, but and to be fair as well, the emergency funds for small businesses were rife with corruption and negligence and just flat out false information provided by fake businesses for people to just get money. Thankfully, it's catching up to them. Some of these people who fleeced the government out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. But to be fair, when this first came out, and what I mean that is the pandemic, when it first came out, when we were first getting whispers of it from China, we had no idea what was going on. We just saw very concerning images of hospitals and stuff like that in China, and we didn't know what was going on. And then next thing you know, it's here in America. I would say the first month of the pandemic, I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what this is. I'm a little concerned, but then again, I don't know. I wasn't really sure. And then when my fiance's father got sick with it, in the very beginning, this is like when it very, very beginning, he was very sick for a week. And when I say very sick, I mean he felt like he just had like the worst flu ever. And I know everyone's saying, oh, the COVID is just the flu and all that stuff. Well, I mean, to be fair, it kind of is when you look in the actual science of what SARS-CoV-2 is, or COVID-19 rather, not 2. But but then he got better, and he's in his 60s. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not like, he doesn't have major underlying problems or anything like that. But he drinks, he drinks socially, he has a good time, but he does work out a lot. Like when I say work out, he goes for a run, does stuff at home, and he got better. So that's when my kind of worries about this whole thing kind of started to lift a little bit. I was like, oh, well, shoot, if he's okay, then I'm sure we're going to be fine. Trump is a boomer and he's a germaphobe. Those two combinations, I'm not surprised we got what we got out of Trump during the COVID emergency. After a while, though, he realized that maybe this isn't such a big problem as it is, which is why 2 weeks to flatten the curve, that message kind of diverted into each state should take their own measures based on their COVID numbers. And then, of course, obviously, we got inflated COVID numbers and all that. So I don't want to get into all that. I'm just trying to talk about spending during the Trump administration before I sign off. I can go into a whole video outlining why I believe Trump did what he did during the whole COVID lockdowns and all that stuff. Either way, no matter what he did, he was going to be in a lose-lose situation, period. I mean, no matter how you spin it, no matter what he did, he was going to be in a lose-lose situation. Because, think about it now. I still see people at work, at the grocery store, walking outside, driving alone in their car, still wearing masks. So we all know the damage that this whole thing did to the psyche of the American public, and the global public at large. But anyway, there's a small asterisk to where Trump had spending levels increased, and sure enough, he has a plan to cut. He has a plan to cut spending. I need to hear it. I'd like to hear in detail what he plans to cut, what he plans to stop. Honestly, like, spending is a big thing, but his stances on, the border, immigration, all that stuff is where I really, really agree with him on. He's outlined a lot of his plans for that, and that's where I agree. I'm going to stop right there because I'll keep going, and then this will turn into a multi-topic video. I just wanted to talk about the debt ceiling bill that got passed. I pretty much agree with everything I just read, and then that's what I think of this whole fiasco that is the spending bill, and I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit like. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, and I will see you all later. Take care.